Hey everyone, so this is one of the must-watch videos on the channel. So this is my final season predictions and also cup prediction prior to the season starting. So we are literally like 48 hours away from the opening of the new NHL season, and I had already like a month ago released my early picks for what I thought would happen this season, and then of course for my early cup picks. So this is kind of just some revisions that I've made and then updated brackets. So if you're new to the channel, I hope you subscribe, hit that like button, comment your thoughts down below, everyone, and let me know your picks. So Metro, I didn't do too much to the Metro. The one big change for me was the Blue Jackets and Flyers kind of swapping a little bit. I just think the Blue Jackets have so many question marks for me. The Flyers have actually liked what I've seen from some players in the preseason. I do think Trevor Zegras could be a huge prove-it deal or prove-it player kind of for the season, playing with Michkov. I just like what the Flyers in terms of their younger defense group. Different things with the Flyers I'm seeing. Also, their center depth is pretty impressive. Like now with Zegras at the center spot, you got Zegras, Couturier, Cates, and Christian Dvorak. Like if Dvorak's your fourth line center, that's pretty nuts. So either way, the Flyers have ridiculous center depth. I think that could play an advantage for their matchup game throughout this season. So the Rangers, for me, their bottom six is actually brutal. So very different from what I just talked about with the Flyers, but they have one of the best goalies in the world. They have one of the best offensive defensemen in the world, and they still have a great top six. So I'm still expecting the Rangers to be in that playoff conversation. So it was hard for me to really knock them out, but it doesn't mean that they're going to make the playoffs. Just because they're knocking on the door doesn't mean they make it. And then looking at the Atlantic Division, the Lightning for me are kind of just that runaway favorite right now. I just feel like if they're healthy, everything comes together. Like a guy like Connor Geekie is really showing well. So I just think the Bolts are there. But after that, it's really confusing after the Barkov injury. So for the Panthers, I just really don't know. The Leafs, I said it last year, but I'm also saying it more so this year with another year of Chief, Berube, and also with losing Marner. I feel like that step back in the season might happen. It might not, but it might. A team like the Sabres, I keep talking about it. Like I want to put the Sabres up because I feel like Rasmus Dahlin's going to have a massive year. I think the Sabres are really destined at some point to go from this to this. I just don't know when it's going to happen, and they haven't shown me enough yet. And I've been proven wrong. I've been kind of, I don't know, they've made me look dumb. I'll just put it that way. So I've seen enough that I just have to keep them down there until they prove me otherwise. Montreal, Detroit, to me, they're kind of, you could flip. I know Habs fans are going to get at me, but really, like, a lot of the numbers, it doesn't back Montreal for being a top 3 or top 4 team in this division. Could they make the playoffs? For sure. Montreal, I could see them as a wild card team or knocking on the door for the 3rd division spot. But to me, they're not one up on Tampa. They're not one up on Toronto. The reason why Ottawa actually might be higher there is just because I think that defense core is better than a lot of the other teams here. So we'll see. I think overall, though, like Buffalo, obviously they've got Dahlin, Byram, Power. Can they figure it out? I like Toronto's balanced defense group. Florida, it's just going to be an injury conversation. No Tkachuk and no Barkov. No Barkov maybe for the year. So that's going to be tough, but I still think they can make the playoffs with what they've got. And then Pacific Division, just looking at it, I think it's like one of those easy ones where it's like Edmonton, Vegas, top 2, and then after that, I jumped Vancouver a little bit. My hot take, I think Demko's going to have a massive bounce back year. LA, to me, could be the hot take team that misses the playoffs. I know Kings fans don't want to hear that. I know some people are going to get on my case for it, but there's a couple reasons. Obviously, age for the big boys is a factor, and I know it's Kopitar's last year, so there's going to be incentive to have a great year. But I do think the Kings are missing some pieces here. I think they're good enough to be in the top 3, top 4 of this division, which I have them in the top 4 of this division. But depending on how the Central does, which I think the Central is so much better than the Pacific, the Central might pull for both wildcard spots, which is exactly what I have. So I actually probably have the top 5 of the Central all making the playoffs. To me, Utah, I had Utah in the top 3, guys. After watching a couple performances, I know it's preseason, but even watching the one game I watched with Vejmelka, I don't know if this is just goggles on like one game that I watched, but the Connor Ingram situation is a really sad situation. Obviously, he's no longer with the organization. He's with the Edmonton Oilers organization. And I just think going into the year with what they have in the goaltending tandem, and I've kind of looked into the team a little bit more. There's some holes. There's some holes in the bottom 6. There's some holes in the defense group. They've got a lot of veteran experience, don't get me wrong, and rising youth with Cooley and Gunther. I like what they have. I just dropped them because now I think more and more about it, and I see what's happened in preseason. I just can't go that much of a hot take. I hope Utah does make the playoffs, but I've jumped a few teams ahead of them. Just watching what Dallas can do, watching what the St. Louis Blues can do, like watching the chemistry between Holloway and Kyrou in that preseason was really pretty to watch. So I'm high on the Blues again. I'm back on that train. I just think if Binnington can have a big year, to me they have a lot going for them, and I think a guy like Philip Broberg is going to keep breaking out. So watch out for Broberg this season. So just to give you guys a quick outlook on what I'm thinking for the playoffs. Again, you guys can criticize me. I'm kind of past the point of like taking it too seriously, but this is what I feel. And honestly, I think Colorado is that team. I can't see them being in a first round exit. To me, I'm kind of questioning Winnipeg in terms of the holes, but it seems like Kyle Connor might be sticking around long term with Winnipeg. So that's a good sign for the future. But they definitely have some forward holes for sure after losing Ehlers. My hot take, though, might be Minnesota. I saw some people in the comments ripping me and like not understanding my hype on Minnesota. For me, I've always said it. If you have veterans and you have youth building around those veterans on a lower cap hit, it's massive for a potential to go on a playoff run and do well in this season. So the fact that they have Brock Faber and they have Zeev and they have David Jiricek, I think is massive. Like if you guys don't know Zeev's game, learn and watch what happens this season. And David Jiricek, I think, is going to have a big year. And if not, he's going to have a big future for himself. And then the goaltending tandem. Like, I think Gustafsson just signed that long-term deal or that extension, and I think Wallsted's going to be a stud at some point. He needs time to develop. And then that forward group, I think, is deep. Like, the center position is obviously the big question mark there, but I think they're deep. And I think I'm so high on Matt Boldy. So I think Minnesota, I know there's like that Minnesota sports curse going on. I get it. But I'm not looking at the sports teams here in terms of the locations or the city they're playing in. I'm looking at specifically their roster, and I'm high on Minnesota for what I see and what I've looked into with their roster. So Vegas, I'm not going to question it. Like, it's Vegas, it's Edmonton. If you guys need me to explain that one, I've explained it on so many videos. Go watch my early picks. To me, it's those two teams. I think Toronto can upset Tampa in the first round if that's how it frames out. I mean, Toronto's had Tampa's number here recently. I also think Toronto's better built for the playoffs right now. I also think Tampa's getting older. And I also think if Florida is beat up and they have no Barkov, I think Ottawa and the Brady Tkachuk win here could happen. You know what? I think Matthew Tkachuk probably ends up being healthy by the playoffs and probably ends up being healthy by the new year. Barkov, not so much. I do think Florida is either going to go all the way or go out in the first round for me. Like, I actually think that, because I think if they're good enough to beat one of the Atlantic Division teams in the first round, they're good enough to go all the way. So that's my hot take for the Florida Panthers. They're either out in the first round or they're back in the Cup final. To me, there's no in between, because I think they're just that team. Once they get rolling, you can't stop them. And I think if they're good enough, like I said, to win in that situation, they probably have Barkov back, and they're probably good enough to go all the way. But Battle of Ontario in the second round, that would be pretty crazy. Give me Carolina over Detroit. I'm very high on the Detroit situation, just to give you guys a bit of an outlook on their lines, but I'm also more so hype on the defense group. Sandin Pellikka in the pitcher is huge. I think the fact that they finally put Justin Hall on waivers and out of the pitcher, boom, get Gustafsson out of there as well. I love the young Red Wings defense group, and they've got a good veteran goaltending tandem to kind of offset that youth in the defense group. So I think that's big for Detroit. I have them as a hot take to make the playoffs, but they're not good enough to beat Carolina. So, sorry, that was another thumbnail from the past. But New Jersey beating Washington, I definitely see that as a scenario. And I'll just knock New Jersey right into the conference final, because that's how high I am on New Jersey this year. New Jersey, for me, similar confidence as I have like in Minnesota, just the structure, the youth, like Nemec and Luke Hughes in the defense group, some of the depth pieces in the forward group. Sheldon Keefe, I've never been high on Sheldon Keefe, but I think you obviously have success for what you have around you, and I think he has a great structured team around him in New Jersey, and if Markstrom can stay healthy, that's big. And I also think he might have the opportunity to face his former team. So I think it's not far-fetched to say these two teams can be in the conference final this year based on how they're built. I also think it's not far-fetched to say Colorado and Vegas could be back in the conference final, respectfully. And yeah, I have Edmonton losing there. You know what? Edmonton's goaltending situation is always the question mark, but they still went to back-to-back Cup finals. I don't know the McDavid situation. I mean, he could sign, he might not sign. I'll just say this. Vegas, I think Mike Rupp said it or somebody said it recently. If you do look at Vegas's forward group, and I understand they have no Alex Pietrangelo, but look at their forward group, look at their defense group. They have the best built skater structure in the NHL. The goaltending is always a question mark for any team outside of the outliers that have the best goalies in the National Hockey League, but and Vegas doesn't have that. But defense, forwards, best playoffs, like built roster. And I just think Vegas is going to be right back in there, potentially. So Mitch Marner or not, and I've always said this, it really doesn't matter. If Mitch Marner doesn't show up in the playoffs, he gets them there into a high position of the season, and maybe he's a guy that puts up, 10 points in a 20 playoff run. Even if he does that, you're talking about Eichel, you're talking about Hurdle, you're talking about Stone, you're talking about playoff performer Barbashev, you're talking about William Karlsson. Like, you have a lot of pieces there in that forward group, and then all the peripheral guys that are really big-time playoff performers in their little ways, right? So that's the depth that matters at the end of the day, and I do think that New Jersey could beat Toronto. I'm not going to say that the Devils are the better team, because I actually don't even think that. I think the Leafs are overall the better team. What I think New Jersey could have the advantage is two things. One, I think the prime of their center depth is better than Toronto's, obviously. Like, it's no secret. Jack Hughes, and I think Nico Hischier is one of the most underrated top centers in the game. Austin Matthews is Austin Matthews. But like Jack Hughes, Austin Matthews also has had his injury issues. So looking at that, I'm taking Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier over Matthews and Tavares in terms of the center duo. Overall, I still think Toronto's the better team. I just think that sometimes in playoffs, that matters. That definitely matters. And when I look at the defense group, I think the defense groups are competitive against each other. But again, New Jersey has a couple of those studs up, like, on the offensive side of things as well, right? Like, you have Dougie Hamilton, but to me, it's not even Dougie Hamilton's show as much anymore when you have guys like Luke Hughes and Nemec knocking on the door. So it really will come down to goaltending in terms of veterans, like obviously Stolarz and Hamilton or Markstrom in there. I think Vegas can win the Cup, so I'm going to stick with them. I think I had them in my early picks too. To me, they won a Cup already. The NHL wants them to win another Cup. I would not be surprised at all if Vegas wins the Stanley Cup in 2026. So give me your thoughts, guys, on who you think is going to win the Stanley Cup in 2026. Give me your thoughts on my picks. If you want to chirp me, go right ahead. I'll try to get to a reply to you. But yeah, I think looking at this bracket, it's not that far-fetched either. So even if you disagree with me, I don't think you should be waving your arms around. And for any certain fan bases that are not happy that I didn't put their team in the playoffs, then give me a good reason, because I think it's hard to make these predictions sometimes, and we're never right. None of us, right? We're never perfectly right. So thanks, everyone. Subscribe, like, comment, notification bell. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.